Little Smoky River, you being good to me. From every fallen timber, be a strong standing tree.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Dusty Tucker. Today is going to be a loading video, and I don't have a shooting video for you, unfortunately, but I do have a results video. Well, not a results video, sorry, I have a couple of results pictures from the end game of the aftermath of the... So anyways, I'll get to it. This video is going to be loading the 7.62x25 Tokarev, or T33. So 7.62x25, not 30 Mauser. And I'll get into the how I load it. Okay, I've loaded for it a couple of times now, and it seems to work very well with this specific load. And we're not talking the factory 7.62x25 like surplus ammunition here in the steel case. That's what it shoots, and that's what I've shot in it for the longest time. But I recently discovered I would like to shoot lead out of it, because I'd like to shoot this in the Wild Bunch open category, because I've always wanted to get a 1911, but I can't because of the ban now. I'll call it a ban, that's what it is basically. So I wanted to load for this pistol, and I didn't know anything about it at first, so I did a whole bunch of research, and basically I'm just going to try to explain and share with you what I've learned, because there's not a lot of videos on this on YouTube. I've kind of looked and tried to find some, but there's a few key points that are missing in the videos. Anyways, so 7.62x25. So the projectile I'm using, I had a little piece of paper. Oh, I'll get to the loading data and stuff like that in a minute, but make sure it's 7.62x25. You can also use 30 Mauser in a pinch. I find that it just doesn't plunk test perfectly. Like, the chamber mouth will rest about where the taper is in the case. It will forward assist enough. The action will come back and slam it in. This is clear, by the way. There's no magazine, there's no rounds. If it's a 30 Mauser casing, and if you do everything right with lead, this video is going to be specifically on lead, by the way. It will chamber 30 Mauser, and it will shoot them. I've tested a handful of them that are in this bag of brass that I got. It's not all 7.62x25. There's some 30 Mauser in there, and I can show you the differences between the two. There's not a whole lot, but they both work. They both function in it. Remember, this is for the Tokarev, not a CZ 7.62. So let's get a book out, and we'll start with the book. Okay, I'm going to try and do this with one hand, but I find this book very useful, especially for people that cast their projectiles. If you don't have this book and you want to get into casting, I totally suggest getting this book. Or if you are a caster, this book is very good to have. It's got everything in it. It's got even like a beginner's. There's a bunch of like cool little tips and tricks and everything in here. It's a very cool book. So we're going to go to the page that we need. I think I'm going the wrong way here. I think it's this guy. If I can, like I said, I'm trying to do this with one hand. Okay, so here we go. 7.62 Tokarev or 30 Mauser. They have them in the same page. And this is the bullet that I'm using, is the Lee 311 93 grain round nose bullet. So the closest bullet, they only have two bullets here. They have the 75 grain bullet, and they have the 85 grain bullet. But they have the powder that I like, and that's tight group. I like to use tight group for pistols. They have them for both. So I'm using a 93 grain bullet. So we're going to go off this data, because that's the closest data that I have for the projectiles I'm using. So basically what I'm going to do is, you got a heavier bullet, which means less powder. So tight group starting 4, max 5. So what I do is I cut the difference. I'm going to go 4.6. So I'm not going to go 5. I'm going to go 4.6 because I have a heavier projectile, and I don't want I don't want to overload this gun. So my load is going to be 4.6. And also a side note, firearm used was a CZ52. We're using a Tokarev. I'll tell you right now, if you size 311 projectiles and shoot it out of the Tokarev, you're going to run into issues. And I will show you a picture of the bore after shooting 311 projectiles. So there is pieces of chunks of lead and stuff that's hanging inside the barrel, and they were not very accurate. So what I did was I took and purchased myself a 309 lubricizer, a Lee one, just a push-through one. So basically because I just wanted to test it for now, I didn't want to full out and buy the sizing die for my lubricizer, 309. I didn't want it because they're kind of expensive and I couldn't find a used one. This was the cheaper route and I just wanted to test it to see if it worked. And then yes, it does work. So now I have to do an extra process for sizing my lead. I have to go through the 311 lubricizer and then I coat them with a little bit of A-LOX and then I run them through this and then I wipe the A-LOX off and then I'll load them. So there's a little bit more of a process involved, but I'll tell you right now that if you're shooting the Tokarev like me, you want to size them 309. I never slugged the bore in it, but it likes them. And with the picture of my wife shooting them at 10 yards, that'll just tell you everything you need to know, basically. So yeah, 311 93 grain round nose is the projectiles that I'm using. And we're going with this load data, we're going to go 4.6. And it shows you your trim lengths and everything here. It shows you all your info there, your max overall cartridge length and everything like that. So, okay, so we looked at some data and we know that we want to go with 4.6 grains of tight group. That's what I have written on the box here for when I take it to the range. So we got our powder measure here. I think this is an older Redding powder measure. We have it preset, ready to go. I like to test the first 5 loads and then every 20 rounds after that. I like to double check them to make sure that it's accurate. This thing is throwing very, very accurately. I like this older Redding. I've had it for just a little while now and I like it better than the plastic Lee ones. And then we got, I'll just move my camera over here so you can kind of see a better idea of what's going on here. Sorry about all this. I know how much camera moving is annoying. But so we got our Lee press set up here. We have our case mouth expander die ready to go. I'm not going to show you the decapping and resizing die, process, because it's obvious what you have to do in that step. I find you don't need to lube these to resize them. They go through very nicely, especially if you have carbide dies. You don't have to lube them. And you want to make sure that there is a breather hole in your die. If you don't have a breather hole, then if you are going to lube them, just be careful you don't use too much lube so you don't deform the brass. Again, this is the 7.62 by 25 specific, not 30 Mauser. This is the Tokarev die set. And I also have a factory crimp die, which I use after the fact, but I'll get to that later. I like to double check everything. So my powder charge is 4.6, and I like to weigh them to make sure. And if I'm still not sure, I'll actually take the weigh scale, the balance beam, and triple check it to make sure that this is accurate and then to make sure this is accurate. So, and I'll use the balance beam to calibrate this guy. This guy is actually dead on, and he's been dead on since I bought it, so I'm very happy to... Another good thing to keep your... I'll give you a tip right now, free of charge. This guy, when you are using him, try not touching. Don't touch the plate of this surface. Don't squeeze on it or touch it or maneuver it or whatever. I try not to touch it at all. The only time I touch it is when I clean it off with powder residue. It's a very sensitive scale, and any like overpressure you put on it will throw it off and will screw the whole thing up. So just keep that in mind. Just a little tidbit there. So I'm gonna see if I can get a better angle here. If I can get, I don't have the best cameraing stuff for this setup. So we're gonna turn this guy on, and we're gonna make sure that we are on grains, not grams. Make sure if you buy one of these, it'll be preset to grams. You have to change the units to grains. I did that the first time I started reloading, and I thought that was way too much powder. Oh yeah, I have to zero the scale, so I gotta put this on first. And then we'll see what we got here. Make sure it's zeroed, and then I just take an empty brass or something that's on my loading bench here, or a scoop, or of course these all have no primers in them, so I can't use those. I'll use this guy. I have this guy ready to go here. 4.6. Boom. It might be backwards to you guys because reverse facing camera and all. It's not a great time. 4.6. It has always thrown 4.6, but I like to triple, quadruple check all the time anyways. So I have 50 brass, and I want to load 5 or 6 of them with you guys on camera, just to kind of show you what I do in the process and everything like that. Make sure you got primers and powder. I'm using tight group powder, like I said, 4.6 grains. I probably repeat myself a lot, and that's just the way I grew up. My dad did the same thing. Plus, I got a really bad short-term memory, so I don't remember if I said it or not. But you're going to keep hearing it, so whatever. If you don't like it, then make your own video. So, projectile size, like I said, for the Tokarev is not going to be 311. It's going to be 309. You want to go with 309. Otherwise, after you shoot, you're going to see flakes and crap of leading in your barrel. And it won't be as accurate. You'll find out right away. And it's, yeah, not really great for your gun to shoot over that big of oversized projectiles. That's the projectile. I only lubed the bottom lube groove because I did them all in a batch, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be sticking out of the case or not. For instance, I wasn't sure if it was going to be sitting that top lube groove outside the case or not, but it turns out it's just inside the case. So I could lube that second groove, but it seems to work really well with just the one lube groove. So we're okay there. Like I said, these brass have all been resized, full length, never neck size 7.62 Tokarev brass. It won't work very well for you. You want to do full length size every time. Every time. Small pistol primers. Okay, so once you have everything prepped and ready to go, my setup's a little different than most people's. I have a partner press over here, and the reason for that is I like to go from this press to this press. And usually when I'm loading like 45 Colt or something, I don't need to use the factory crimp die. And after I shoot, I always take my brass and I have a universal decapping die. I'll run them through the decapping die. I'll clean them, and then I'll size them, and then they go in the bag in my drawer. Then they're ready to go for when... Some people take it a step further and actually put a primer in there too. But I have them resized, like all these ones in these bags right here. These are all sized and deprimed and ready to go. So the first thing I do is I start with my case mouth expansion die. She's in there ready to go. Shell holder's in there ready to go. I prime on my press, so I have a little priming arm there. And then this guy is the bullet seeder, and I don't crimp with this. I know you can, but I don't. I just kind of close the case mouth expansion around the bullet. I don't crimp. I just kind of get it ready to be crimped. And then we'll use the factory crimp die after that. So it's kind of like loading 4440 if you've ever done that. You have a little bit of a bottleneck there. I like to use a factory crimp die on those as well, especially with the 4440 because they go in a tubular magazine and you do not want them pushing in each other in the tube, and then that can cause some serious issues, especially for cowboy action shooting. You don't want that to happen. So I like to make sure that I got nice firm crimps. You can see on this guy here. Nice, beautiful, firm crimp. And they're very accurate that way too. A little bit of tidbit for you. If you don't have the factory crimp die, you can find them on Amazon, but Amazon is getting a little ridiculous on reloading stuff. Like, I think the factory crimp die was around 80, 90 bucks on Amazon, but I found one secondhand for like 15 bucks. So don't always go to Amazon. They're kind of not the greatest place sometimes to get stuff from. But anyways, so we got our powder thrower ready to go. It's throwing accurate. Case mouth expansion ready to go. Bullet seating, and we'll call it bullet seating and squeezing. So we're gonna go ahead and start here. I'll try as best as I can to explain. Most of the other videos, they don't tell you for the Tokarev that it's 309, but most of them aren't using lead. So hopefully this video helps some people that want to shoot this lead round. Okay, so we're going to start with an empty case. We're going to grab a primer just with my hand. There's a little tool that comes with this press that takes your primer and puts it on the cup automatically, but I do not like its operation. I find that it does not work very good. It always spits out primers and throws them sometimes. It doesn't put them in the cup properly. I don't know. Maybe some people have better luck with that than I do. But I just like to take my fingers and just drop it in the cup. Just like that. That's all I do. And then put this guy in there. You never force it. You just kind of go nice and slow. Down all the way. Come up. This is just the way I do it. Come in, prime it, squeeze it. You want to make sure it's just flush or slightly below flush. We're good. Case mouth, you want to make sure, especially for this one, because it's got a very small surface area that actually grabs the bullet. So you want to make sure you want the bullet just to barely sit in there. If you flare the case mouth too much, you're going to pull this neck down too far, and then you're going to have even less contact with the bullet, and you might have a chance of it just dropping right down inside the case, and then you might as well just toss it at that point. So you don't want that to happen. You want it to just sit right on the top so it can get as much purchase as possible. And then we're going to just come over here and charge it. I'm very confident that that's 4.6 grains. We're just going to take our bullet, stick it on top, and then we're going to come over here to this guy, put him up, and we're just going to go, we're not going to go all the way down. We're going to go in until we feel the bullet stop right there, and then we're just going to give it an extra little bit of juice just to grab, just so the brass can grab the brass can grab the bullet. My camera does not like to focus very well. So it's not crimped, but the brass is closed around the bullet. If I was shooting jacketed bullets, I would call that fine. And, well, for me, I would still want to factory crimp it. But you could, if it was a jacketed bullet, you could call that fine, and that would be good to go. But I like to factory crimp them. So just let me put over here, and we'll do another one. So those newer shooters or reloaders can see the operation again. Empty brass primer. I just grab them. I just drop them in the cup. Oh crap. There's a little burr around my shell holder that keeps, you can hear it once in a while. It grabs the spring and it likes to, I just need to take a file to that. Put it in there. All the way down. I have this thing set just right so it just has enough case mouth flare. There we go. Nice and primed. Just give it a check again, just to make sure. Just sits in there. Good. And let's double check our powder. maybe it's been sitting a while and you don't really trust it. I'm going to take this and empty it back into the top there. And we're going to open this or turn it back on. Just going to double check that this is throwing 4.6 grains. 4.6 grains. You're good. So we can take that, put it in the case, grab our bullet, put the bullet on top, bring it over here, stick it in there, just give it a feel. You'll feel it kind of stop, like right there, and then you just give it a little extra. You can, once you do it enough times, you'll get the feel of it, and it'll be like second nature to you. There's another one. So the reason I like this setup better than a turret press or a progressive press is because you can feel and see every step of the operation along the way. So you can, I don't know, I find I have less errors shooting when it comes to loading like this versus a press where you just keep stacking the bullets on and it rotates and it does everything, it feeds everything, and you're not really getting the same. Yeah, you load a lot faster, and some people don't have patience and they prefer it that way. But this way, I find I have way less error, and I basically never have an issue, even with, like, I don't want to jinx it, maybe knock on wood, but when it comes to cowboy action shooting and everything like that, I hardly ever have an ammo malfunction because I just go through everything so slowly, and you know, you just look at everything you're doing. If something feels wrong or feels funny, double check it. Versus like a Dylan where you're just, some of those guys, they just set it up and they can walk away and it'll just pump out rounds. It's crazy. I mean, as nice as that is, you don't know what you're shooting. What if you have like a blockage in your powder tube or something, and then you have 10 rounds that don't have powder, and then you have 10 squibs? I don't know. Just whatever. It's just me. Anyway, we'll go with another one. So I'll kind of show you why I like this setup. Let's see if I can kind of set up. Can't really see the other press there. Well, maybe. Well, we'll see here. So primer in the cup. You can go pretty quick this way too. It doesn't take too long. You know what throws accurate charges. I just like to check to make sure the powder dropped in there. Place your bullet on top. Make sure the primer's below flush. Come over here. There we go. Done. Grab another one. This setup, and it's really not very expensive to have a setup this way either. Like it's a lot cheaper than going with the hardcore Dylan press or something like that. You can pump them out pretty quick this way too, you know. Especially once you get going and all that. I'm not even trying to go fast. It's just, and I'm actually inspecting every single cartridge as I'm going. You can see how this wouldn't take very long, right? Like I just pumped out 3-4 rounds in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take long. And then once you're done, I think I had a primer fall into here. Just let me do one real quick. I only got one left for this 50, and then I'm done. One left. Just go through this last one here real quick. Check for powder, check for primers. You don't want to force anything if it doesn't feel right. You don't want to keep forcing it. You just want it to flow nicely and smoothly all the way through. And then once I'm done, I like to cover that up right away. It's because I don't want to damage it. And I like to actually put it away. Put it in its case. Throw everything away. Keep a nice, clean, organized table as best as you can. Okay, so the next step is really easy. And it's not that much of a pain in the butt, I don't think. Take this case mouth expander die out of there and throw this guy in there. This guy doesn't have to be set any particular way. I could have this all the way up like that. It'll still work just the same as having it all the way down like that. This die only allows the bullet in so far, and it does its job for you. You don't have to set it up any certain way. It'll do it no matter which. That's why I don't have a lock ring on here. It just free floats because it doesn't matter. You just drop it in there. Take your bullet and you want to give it a little firm press. You want to go down and just give it a nice little press like that. And then you can see, come on, focus. Focus. You can see the crimp there. Nice juicy crimp. I like to go. Nice juicy crimp. And then you'll have no problems with plunk testing or at the range or anything like that. In this step, you can go pretty quickly too. I like to do these all at the end. That way you don't have to worry about changing dies out all the time. There we go. Those are all done. I like to just give them a wipe because sometimes there'll be a little bit of brass burrs or something, or a little tiny ring of lead from the crimp or something. Just like, we're talking microscopic, not anything crazy. So yeah, that's it. This video might be a little bit longer. Well, actually, it's only going to be about half an hour or so, maybe 40 minutes. But there we go. We have 50 loaded 7.62 by 25 brass cartridges, I should say. These are ready to go, and I could plunk test every one of these. I could take any one of these, and they'll shoot, no problem, absolutely no problem. The 30 Mauser might not plunk test per all the way, but like I said before, with the slide moving forward on this pistol, there's enough forward assist. It's going in the chamber, and it will come out and cycle smoothly. Even though, I'll see if I can find one here for you. I usually can pick them up pretty quick. There should be a couple of 30 Mausers in this. Come on, what's this guy here? See, here's a 30 Mauser. You might not be able to see the difference. It's not very much. There's too much light here. It wants to focus on me and not the 30 Mauser has a more of a cut groove in it for their ejector in the Mauser, then the Tokarev has more of a low profile cut in it. And the brass, the diameter is slightly bigger, but not by much. The die, if you use Tokarev dies to resize 30 Mauser brass, you basically have a Tokarev or a 7.62 by 25 brass. You just have the different lip, and I think the rim, the actual the base of the rim is slightly thinner on the 7.62 by 25 than the 30 Mauser. The 30 Mauser has a little bit of a thicker rim, and that is another reason it won't fully plunk test all the way to the chamber, but it will cycle and shoot just the same as a 7.62 brass. No problems. So there we go. That's how I load my 7.62 by 25 Tokarev T33 lead projectiles. So I hope some of you guys found this video useful. And until next time, keep shooting. I will show you some pictures and everything of how they turned out. And until then, we'll see you next time. Dusty Tucker signing out.